Esa es una observación que hace.
And I'm going to eliminate some of the detail down below here. I'll probably include this little wall, but I don't think I want this person sitting on the end.
Que elimina el detalle, va a incluir la pared pequeña, pero por ejemplo la persona que está sentada en el muro ese de contención no la va a incluir.
And okay, so now when I get in here and I'm going to draw more people, I'm just going to make sure that their heads kind of line up with the heads of these figures here that I've already done.
Cuando entra ahí donde está el túnel, va a incluir a la gente, pone detalle en incluir, en ver que las cabezas estén alineadas con las cabezas de la gente que está caminando.
And again, I'll do this a little bit better, obviously, when I get to the value or the color version, but.
Y otra vez va a hacerlo mejor cuando vaya a la versión de color, pero es solo para dar una idea para el estudio de valor.
Okay, so now I'm going to, the way I treat my value studies is I squint at the scene, and anything that looks light, I leave white paper. So it usually includes the sky, obviously if there's water reflecting the sky. So the white of the paper doesn't just represent white shapes, it represents light shapes.
Dice, de la manera que hace el estudio de valor, lo que hace es entrecerrar los ojos y mirar, y todo lo que es clarito lo deja blanco. O sea, lo que es blanco en el estudio de valor no quiere decir que sea blanco en el color, sino que es luz. No solo luz, sino formas claras.
So as I squint at this, we've got the sky is a little deeper, but I'm going to make it a little bit brighter. So the sky will be light. We've got some lights on the tall palm trees, a little bit of lighter area of the hill over here. Obviously the white part of the building and the rooftop are light. The ground plane is light, okay, and then a few lighter shirts on the figures.
Entonces, mirando con ojos entrecerrados la imagen de referencia, lo que es claro es el cielo, que si bien es oscuro, lo va a hacer un poco más claro, los troncos de las palmeras, las paredes, y la gente tiene algunos tonos claros en la figura.
So everything else I'm going to try and join together into one big shape. So I'm going to start by mixing a big puddle of middle value gray.
Todo lo demás lo va a atar en una sola forma. Entonces, lo que va a hacer es mezclar un charquito de un gris de valor intermedio.
Very fluid. I want this to be not too dark yet. This is for my middle value.
Muy fluido, no quiere que sea demasiado oscuro, es para su valor intermedio.
Okay, that should be close to enough. I'm going to have a little smaller brush too, ready for when I get down by the people.
Y tiene un pincel más pequeño para cuando tenga que hacer la gente.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start connecting shapes here.
Y va a empezar conectando formas.
Every once in a while, I'm just going to paint through one of the palm trees to make sure that they're connecting.
Cada tanto va a pintar a través de las palmeras para asegurarse que están conectadas.
I'm squinting all the time. I have my eyes almost shut while I'm painting this.
Todo el tiempo lo hace con los ojos casi cerrados, mira a través de los ojos.
I don't want to see detail, I don't want to see color, I just want to see big values and shapes.
No busca detalle, no busca color, lo único que mira es valores y formas.
There. So whenever I reload my brush, I come back and I touch the paper where I left off someplace at a wet edge here.
Cuando carga el pincel, vuelve donde dejó anteriormente y siempre busca un borde mojado.
So now I'm going to fill in underneath here a lot of those shadows, and I need to start watching out for some lights on my figures.
Entonces llena en las sombras ahí en el túnel y empieza a buscar luces debajo de sus figuras.
Trying to, again, keep it real simple.
Y otra vez reitera mantener muy simple todo el estudio.
Just going to make up another figure over here because I don't like that guy with his foot up, so I'm going to ignore him.
No le gusta a la persona con el pie levantado, entonces lo va a ignorar, va a ser otra figura ahí. Espero que no escuchen el ruido de fondo acá. I'm saying we have a terrible storm here.
Oh no.
Yeah, terrible. No, hay una
Wow.
terrible tormenta acá. Entonces espero que no escuchen el ruido de fondo.
No, todo perfecto, si quieren.
Buenísimo.
I like to paint my value studies because it's a better practice for my painting. I'm using the same tools that I'm going to be using on my painting, so I think it's a little bit more useful to paint my value studies instead of using charcoal or something.
Le gusta pintar sus estudios de valores porque usa las mismas herramientas en las que va a pintar su trabajo final. Prefiere pintar en vez de usar carbonillas o cualquier otra herramienta.
There's this tree in the background that I'm going to use to define the side of this thing. Okay, now there's a shadow underneath the
Hay un
rooftop.
árbol y ahora está pintando la sombra que está debajo del techo.
So that is connecting down, and it's going to help to define a little bit of the form of this building here.
Hola, Matías. Muy bien, ¿y tú?
Eso conecta y ayuda a definir la forma del edificio.
Start adding a little bit more up there. Okay, so the only part that's not going to be really connected now is going to be this side of the hill.
La única parte que no va a ser realmente conectada es el costado de la sierra.
But again, I need some darker value to help pop out the light buildings and the rooftops. So I'm just using the reference photograph as a general guide for shapes and colors and where trees are and stuff. But
Y hace falta algunos valores oscuros para hacer resaltar los techos.
Pregunta a Sofía acá si hace lo mismo cuando hace cuando hace la pintura afuera.
Perdón, otra vez, ladraron los perros acá. Disculpen. ¿Qué decías, Ale?
Se hace este estudio cuando hace también acuarela afuera.
¿Acuarela?
Plein air.
Está distorsionado el sonido. Si hace
el estudio de valor cuando pinta afuera.
Someone is asking if you also do the value study when you paint outside.
Sometimes. It depends. If it's a really complicated scene, I will, but not always.
Algunas veces. Si es una escena muy complicada, lo hace, pero no todo el tiempo. And I apologize for the dogs barking. Disculpen los perros ladrando, es algo que no puedo evitarlo.
A scene like this, I would do a value study for. It's very complicated, the people, the structures, trying to find a way to simplify it. But if I'm just on a landscape where it's some water and trees, I probably wouldn't do a value study.
Dice que en una escena así siempre lo hace porque hay muchas cosas, la gente, los edificios, el paisaje, pero si es solo un paisaje, ahí no lo hace.
Okay, so I'm going to turn me off and zoom out a little bit here, and I'm going to go and get ready to do my color version.
Ahora va a ser la versión en color.
I think I can kind of tuck the value study up here so you can still see it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and darken up my drawing now for the color version and just kind of leave this sitting up here for now.
Ahora va a oscurecer el dibujo para la versión en color.
So I did the same thing. I just kind of started with a little bit of light lines initially to make sure that when I go to draw this, I know I'm a little bit more confident to where my big shapes are going to be before I darken it up.
Empieza con unas líneas claras para estar más confiado cuando hace las líneas grandes y las oscurece.
All right, here it's hitting the side of the building now. Let's make sure I get this right.
Está está haciendo el costado del edificio y pone mucho cuidado para asegurarse que le sale bien. Está poniendo todo el detalle ahora.
Want to make sure it's symmetrical as much as possible.
Tratando que sea simétrico.
So I'm just going back and forth instead of drawing one whole side and coming around. Every time I get a side, I go to the other side and draw
Hace
more.
un pedacito de cada lado en vez de hacerlo todo de un lado y después tratar de copiarlo del otro. Eso es para asegurar que sea simétrico.
Just indicate a few of those people. I'm not going to draw them all. But this guy in the front with the light shirt on, I'll make sure I know where he is going to be. And
No va a dibujar a todas las personas, pero por ejemplo, el hombre que está adelante sentado, lo va a dibujar para estar seguro de la posición, donde está.
it's important to remember when you have a scene like this with a lot of people walking around, you don't need to draw every one of them with the same amount of care and detail. As long as I have a couple of the more important figures looking convincing, a lot of the other figures can just kind of be simpler dashes of paint.
Dice, es importante recordar que no hace falta cuando hay tantas figuras, no dibujar absolutamente a todos, pero dibujar algunas personas clave como para recordar la posición de los demás.
And this is just plants and stuff. I'm not going to get too
Plantas y cosas, no hace falta dibujar todo.
a little bit of things in the background. Okay, let's get the ground or the path on here so I know when I'm drawing figures' legs, they're going to end up on the path. All right, so I'm going to let this lady be right on that boundary.
Dibujar la mujer que está en el borde.
I'm just kind of picking a few of these more important figures. I'm not drawing all of them.
No, elige nada más que las personas más importantes, no dibuja a todas.
And I want this guy in here, a taller guy.
Va a dibujar al hombre alto.
Hombre alto.
Hombre alto. Con mochila.
I
With
know what that
backpack.
means. I know what that means.
With backpack. Con mochila.
Nice. With a backpack. Con mochila.
Yeah, con mochila.
Sure wish I had taken the time to learn Spanish. I always regret not knowing.
Sí, no le digo que van a aprender español todos.
Alejandra is saying that everyone's going to learn Spanish from this.
Okay, so again, I'm taking a little bit more time on the drawing for this one, for the color one, but because the shapes are pretty complicated, but once I get painting, it'll be faster.
Dice que se toma un poco más de tiempo con el dibujo en este porque las formas son complicadas, pero una vez que empieza a pintar va a ir más rápido.
Okay, I think all my important shapes are on there now, kind of matching what I had for the value study.
Dice que todas las formas importantes están ahí.
I'm going to take a kneaded eraser and just real lightly get off some of that graphite because I'm going to wet my paper and I don't want it kind of smearing all over the paper. So.
Va a sacar con la goma un poco del grafito porque no quiere cuando ponga el agua
Just a little bit
que se desparrame.
Dark pencil marks. All right, so now I'm going to wet the back and the front of the painting. So I start by wetting the back.
Va a mojar la parte de atrás y la parte de adelante de la pintura. Empieza con la parte de atrás.
Get it pretty damp. I want it to stay damp for a little while for me while I'm putting in my light wash.
Lo deja bastante húmedo.
Okay, now when I wet the front, I need to avoid areas that I want to stay white paper. So I want a lot of that building to actually be white. So I can wet everywhere else, but I need to not wet into this area.
Ahora, cuando moja el frente, va a evitar mojar las partes que quiere que permanezcan blancas en la pintura. Entonces, el edificio, que es blanco en la pintura, esa parte no la va a mojar, va a evitar mojar esa parte.
Preguntan qué lugar es la imagen que eligió.
They're asking what place is that image.
This is Catalina Island.
Catalina Island is in California. Is California, is it?
Sí.
Outside LA?
Yeah.
Off the
Long Beach.
coast.
Long
Off the
Beach.
coast.
Yeah.
Long Beach.
Off the coast, yeah.
Es en California.
Yes.
And someone is asking what grammage of paper, or someone wrote there.
Oh.
140.
Yes. This is Saunders paper, 140 pound.
140 pounds.
Rough texture.
Textura gruesa. I'm not an artist, so it's like,
Oh.
No, está bien, está bien, está bien.
I'm a math professor.
Oh, geez. Wow. Everybody else will know what that means.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, that allows me to get my first wash on here without it getting streaks and stuff on it.
Dice que eso mojar permite poner el primer wash, el primer lavado, sin tener rayas, marcas.
So now, all I need to do is kind of fill in with light colors all these areas that I left white paper on my value study. So unless I wanted a white, so I'm going to start by putting some of these pale grays and warm tones down here on the sidewalk.
Esto les va a permitir poner los colores claros, las veredas.
This is just some neutral tint
Voy a poner
that I use for down here on the sidewalk.
un tono neutro. Tinte neutro. Gracias, María.
And there's more of it up here and the ground up there. Okay, so I've got that area filled in with nice light color. Maybe throw a little purple in there too.
Va a poner un poco de violeta. Agregó un poco de violeta en el tinte.
I'm going to leave that white again, remember, so I don't need to worry about that area.
Quiere dejar esa parte de arriba clarita, entonces no se va a preocupar por esa área.
Want to get a little bit of warmer color on the wall and the little structure sitting right here. So that's all part of the light also.
Sí, agrega para la parte en la pared, es parte de las áreas claras.
The reason I wet my paper first is because I want all of this to be kind of fuzzy and soft edged. So I'm purposely not worried about if these shapes are blending together. I want that to happen. That's why I wet my paper first. So.
Moja el papel primero porque quiere que se mezclen los colores y que esté todo bien.
Okay, I can get a little bit of lighter color on some of their skin tone and stuff up here, these figures.
Y de piel, que se fundan los colores, gracias, se ve. Piel, los pone ahí, arriba.
Okay, I've got a little bit of that on there. Did you want me to zoom in a little bit?
Lo va a poner para adelante.
So you can see while I'm putting the figures in maybe a little bit better. I'm just going to put some color on the clothing for these figures.
Va a poner un poco de color en la ropa para esas figuras.
I'll probably have to come back and darken up a lot of these figures' clothing again later anyways.
Dice que va a tener que, probablemente tenga que volver y poner más oscuro la ropa de estas figuras.
But this is just for to start establishing all the light shapes so that later on if I leave some little gaps on these figures, I don't have white paper, I have some light colors on here.
Lo está estableciendo. Can you repeat that, please? People
Yeah.
are typing and
Sure.
they're distracting me. Sorry.
No problem. So the reason I'm putting in these light colors right now, even if it's going to be covered up later, is so that if I leave some white shapes behind when I'm painting this, I don't want white paper showing through. I want lighter areas of
La
the
razón por la que pone, sorry, esos colores es para que no le queden áreas blancas. Para después si
Sophie.
tiene que poner. Sí,
Alguien dibujó arriba, ¿no? ¿Lo ves?
sí.
¿Se dibuja?
Andy,
Decime que Charlie volvió a entrar. Alguien decía algún gracioso.
there's like a shape showing,
I
like a
don't know.
doodle.
That's not me. I don't know who did that.
Oh, no sabe quién es.
No, alguien de afuera. Lo saco que vuelva a hacer la pantalla a ver si se vuelve.
Yeah, he's going. Alejandro is going to try to take that out for a second.
Okay.
Va a entrar el siguiente. Perdón, hubo un problema. Sí, a ver, Andy.
Andy, are you still there?
I'm still here. Yes? Are we there?
Can we try again? ¿Podemos
Yeah.
probar de vuelta?
Let me go. Can you still see me? Can you see my setup?
We cannot see your desktop. Can you
Okay.
share again?
Okay, hang on. Yep.
No, espera.
My wife is not here right now, so I have to.
¿Puedes dejarlo que comparta la pantalla otra vez?
Sí. Ah, sí, espera. Sí, lo puede hacer.
Andy, you're still there?
Am I there?
Let's see.
Ahí está.
And now it's perfect.
Okay.
Sí, disculpas.
Our apologies.
That's okay.
There.
Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I'm done with those people now. So I need to continue filling in the light areas. I need to start getting the hill in and the palm trees and the sky. Okay.
Ahora va a ser la montaña.
Que ponga toda la pantalla completa porque se ve.
Sí, we can see the controls. Would you mind zooming into the images? We can see your controls.
You can see the controls. Hang on.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Sí, Ale. Sí, Carlota está diciendo, podés habilitar para que solo pueda compartir pantalla él.
I need you.
Ahora lo hago. Pero puede compartir el plan.
I'm not sure how to do this. Hang on here.
Can you zoom in?
I'm trying to get rid of the stuff on here, but I'm on my wife's computer and she's not here right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to do this.
¿Le saco la pantalla y lo vuelvo a hacer?
Can you do full screen?
Let's see here.
View full screen.
O si no, que toque acá, mirá.
Not full screen anymore.
Acá.
All my stuff here.
View full screen interface.
Is that better?
No. Zoom in.
They're seeing everything here.
View. Zoom in.
She says they're seeing the controls and stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's okay. ¿Qué te parece, Ale?
Sí.
It's good.
We're gonna try and share it again. Hang on.
There. Oh, no, we see you.
Hang on.
Yeah.
That went to screen one.
Because it got kicked off and I had to go in and you weren't out here. And then, is this better?
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Never fails. Laura will be sitting here and nothing will go wrong. And as soon as she takes off.
Ahora va a ser el hill, va a ser la colina.
So I'm filling in all this area, even though once again, I'm going to be covering a lot of it up later, but I'm still going to need to fill in most of it with this light brown.
Aunque después lo va a cubrir, ahora lo va a cubrir con ese marrón claro para que no queden lugares vacíos.
See a little bit of that through the back. I can see my my paper started to dry a bit while we were doing that, so I've got to work a little bit faster
Dice
here.
que tiene que trabajar rápido porque se le está secando el papel.
A little bit of this behind. The lighter colors on the palm trees are a little bit more of a neutral tint. They're not as brown.
Dice los colores en las palmeras, claros en las palmeras son de un tinte más claro, más neutros, no son tan marrones.
Get some of that on. Fill that in. Need some more back here. There's still some white back there too, but
Llenando el arco, hay blanco dentro del arco.
and again, some of that is going to get covered up with the middle value shape.
Y de nuevo, algo de eso va a estar cubierto con los valores intermedios.
I need to get the pale green on the rooftop.
Y va a tomar el verde pálido del techo.
Make sure that that's connecting as well.
Se va a asegurar que eso conecte también. Que queda conectado.
I don't want any hard edges if possible at this stage. I want it to all be running together.
En esta etapa no quiere ningún borde duro, quiere que todo quede bien conectado.
A little green down below here too.
Va a agregar verde. Dice acá, cuando ponga el pincel veremos dónde. Ahí. Al borde a la derecha, abajo.
Okay, then. Sorts of fun stuff. We got a couple of railings over here, but I'm just going to start indicating maybe some of the water and stuff that's off to the side down there.
Dice que hay unas barandas ahí debajo. Por ahora va a indicarlo con unas pinceladas. Andy, someone is asking if you usually paint with easel.
Yes.
Sí, normalmente pinta con caballete. Alguien preguntó. Vi Salvador, vos preguntaste. Sí, normalmente pinta con caballete.
Okay, so looking at the value study, I've got this area filled in, I've got the hill filled in. This is going to stay white for the buildings. I've got the rooftops filled in. I've got the road back here filled in a little bit. So now I need to get the sky in.
Está comparando el estudio de valor con los colores, va mirando qué llenó y qué no llenó. Dice que le falta el cielo, le falta llenar el cielo.
Big light wash. I'm going to start by putting that blue on pretty strong up here at the top.
Va a empezar con el azul bien fuerte arriba. Someone is asking why you paint the sky last.
Because it was the darkest part of my middle value.
Dice que pinta el cielo último porque es la parte más oscura de sus valores intermedios.
I don't always paint it last, but
Dice no siempre lo pinta al final, pero acá. Someone says you've been avoiding all the shadows, right?
Yep, that's going to be the next page.
Dice eso es la próxima etapa.
I can come right down and touch the top of my hill.
Puedo ir hasta el fondo y tocar hasta abajo y tocar la parte de arriba del hill. El azul para el cielo, eso debe estar en la lista de colores, imagino.
Use a small brush and just try and change the color of those palm trees a little bit.
Dice que usa un pincel pequeño y trata de cambiar un poquito el color de las palmeras.
Now, as I do this, I put that on and then I wipe it off. If I come in with too much water on my brush, it's going to create blooms. So I'm wiping my brush off.
Cuando hace eso, seca un poco el pincel, porque dice que si no lo hace, genera... la traducción literal de lo que dijo es florecimientos. Yo imagino que debe haber un término técnico en castellano. I'm saying that I don't know the technical term for bloom. Coliflores? Okay. The translation for blooms in Spanish is cauliflowers.
Cauliflower. That works.
It's good. It's good. It works.
Yeah. Yep.
I said blooms. I just translated literally blooms.
Yeah, that's fine. That'll work.
Yeah, I don't know the technical term, so
Huh.
cauliflowers. That's fine.
That works.
Aureolas.
I'm going to do a little bit of the lighter. Again, I'm going to have to go over this when I do the shadows, but I just want to do some of the small siding and stuff, a couple little small shapes to tie things together here for now.
Dice que va a trabajar con el techo después, cuando haga las sombras. Thank you, Lucía.
Light hair on this girl, I want that on.
El pelo clarito, el cabello clarito en esa chica.
Light hat on this
La
girl.
bandana, el sombrero clarito en ese muchacho.
So I'm worried about the big shapes first, and now I can come back in before it's dry and put in small little touches of other colors here.
Se preocupa por las formas grandes primero, y ahora está poniendo los pequeños toques en las formas.
Doing the same thing for the legs. So it
Hace
doesn't
lo mismo
bloom
para las
like the
piernas, así no aparecen coliflores. Seca el pincel y después pone las piernas.
Okay, that's the light shape that I'm seeing, just kind of filling all that in, unless it's something that I wanted to stay white with those buildings.
Esas son todas las formas claras.
Otherwise, everything is covered up with a tone. So I'm going to hit it with a hair dryer real quick to speed up the drying, and then I'll go and repeat this shape on here.
Y se asegura que esté todo cubierto. Ahora lo va a secar con un secador de pelo. Sí. Mientras él lo seca, alguien puso capullos. Además de la traducción al castellano, tenemos los localismos, ¿no? Porque capullos en Argentina no es algo que usamos demasiado. Usamos pimpollos, no capullos. No tenemos los localismos por los diferentes lugares de Latinoamérica. A mí me pareció divertido coliflores.
No, es espectacular. Y aparte de eso, que lo que quiere decir, como se hace con un coliflor.
Claro, en España tampoco usan capullo.
Sofía, acá me escriben todos, que están todos maravillados con tu traducción clara. Hay gente que está aprendiendo español.
Muchas gracias.
No saben qué es una coliflor.
Una coliflor es
es una verdura.
Es una verdura. En italiano, yo sabía el nombre en italiano para coliflor. No me acuerdo. Cabofiore, sí, cabofiore. Cabofiore.
Ojo que Andy ya está, ¿eh?
Oh, sorry, Andy. We're ready for you. We're just talking while you were drying. Andy, can you hear us?
Espera que no puede reactivar. Reactiva el audio. Dice que reactive.
Can you hear us?
Yep, now.
We were just chit-chatting about cauliflowers.
I know. She needed to allow me to unmute myself. We muted ourselves, so you didn't hear the hair dryer, but then we couldn't unmute ourselves.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, so I think it's dry enough now. I'm going to paint this shape on here using some of these colors. So I'm really going to try and pay attention to that, what I found on my value study.
Ahora que secó todos los colores claros, va a prestar atención a los oscuros en el estudio de valor.
I'm going to start with these big shapes, the same thing that I did on there. So I'm going to mix those kind of pale browns and grays and stuff back on the hillside.
Va a empezar por las formas grandes en los costados del hill, de la colina.
Oh. No, el capullo de estornudo parece.
We're talking, Andy. I'm going to translate while you paint. What we were talking while you were drawing, that we not only have the technical translation from English to Spanish, but in Spanish we have so many localisms.
Oh, yeah. So, right, so they're not picking up on all the little subtle dialects and stuff.
Yes, yeah. So there's different words for bloom depending on the country.
Oh, wow.
And in some places, the word for blooms are insults.
Oh,
yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. So one of them means cuckold.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were laughing about that.
I get it now. Okay, I'm going to come down.
Yeah, in Spain.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to come down and just try and leave. I'm just leaving a few little light gaps behind, nothing major.
Está bajando y deja algunos espacios claros, nada demasiado grande.
But I'm really trying to stay with my value study plan here while I'm doing this. Even if, and I'm finding connections, even if the connection is something as small as the shadow side of one of these palm trees, it's still allowing me to come down and connect this shape down here to what's happening down below.
Y trata de mantenerse con el plan que tiene en el estudio de valor, mientras mantiene conectado todas las formas. I hope that I translated correctly.
You're doing well.
There's some comments here. Someone is asking if the paper is completely dry.
Pretty close. Yep.
Sí, está casi completamente seco. And someone is saying that you're working in negative?
Yes, I'm painting negative shapes, painting around the palm trees.
Sí, está trabajando negativos alrededor de las palmeras.
That's part of the challenge of watercolor, is because it's a transparent medium, we don't paint our light shapes, we paint around them.
Dice que es parte de las challenges. De la acuarela, que como es transparente, hay que trabajar en negativo. Desafíos, gracias, Leslie.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm going to get that some more of the shadow on that brown wall down below, but that was a little bit more.
Que va a ser alguna de las sombras en la pared marrón. Los colores que mezcló. They're asking what colors did you mix to get that green?
Cadmium lemon and cerulean blue.
Cadmium lemon y azul cerúleo. Could you please expand on what you really mean by connecting shapes? Someone asked that. I'm literally just reading.
Sure. I want to lose edges. Part of the beauty of watercolor
Quiere perder los bordes.
Is when these colors can mix and merge on the paper.
Parte de la belleza de la acuarela es cuando los colores pueden mezclarse y fundirse en el papel.
That's what I find in the value study. That's why I push the connections, so that I find more areas where the colors can mix together.
Dice, para eso hace el estudio de valor. Busca áreas donde los colores pueden mezclarse juntos.
Does that make sense?
Dice, ¿tiene sentido eso? Gracias. Yes.
Okay. a little bit of that stuff, break that side up some. Same thing on here, give it a little bit of a shadow side on the top of this thing.
Trata de darle una forma ahí arriba.
Okay, so I'm
Una
following my
sombra, no una
schedule.
forma. Sorry.
Got all this down. No, you're fine. I've got all this coming down, this painted. Now I can start working my way back up into the figures and under the archway.
Terminó con la palmera y puede empezar a trabajar debajo del arco y con las figuras. And there's another question here. Make of paint that mixes better.
What's that?
Is there a make of paint that mixes better? Which make of paint is Andy using?
Oh.
Marianne is asking that.
I'm using Winsor Newton paints.
Winsor Newton?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it mixes better. It's just what I learned with and I got comfortable with it, so I stick with it. There's a lot of good professional brands of paint, but I just prefer Winsor
Usa
Newton.
Winsor Newton, hay muchas marcas de pintura profesional, pero es la que...
Okay, connecting under the archway here again.
Conectando otra vez bajo el arco.
Get some of those columns coming down.
Está haciendo las columnas que se ven, que bajan.
Want to avoid another figure or two as I'm doing this. This is the kind of the nitpicky part because I'm trying to avoid some of the figures, but yet also make sure that some of them are joining in with their shapes. So.
Está tratando de evitar las figuras, de no agarrarlas, pero quiere que todo se junte y se una. Alguien está preguntando si el papel todavía está mojado. Contestó que no, que estaba seco antes. Así que imagino, como no lo vi mojar, que el papel está seco.
I want to get the shadow on that guy's blue shirt. I'll zoom in
Welcome.
just a little bit while I'm doing the figures again here, just so they can see that a little better maybe. I want to get some of the shadows on the left side of this guy's shirt.
En las sombras de las camisas de la gente.
Trying to keep it simple. I think it's important for you to treat your figures with a little bit more looseness sometimes and not try and make them all really good. I think the more you try and make them look good, many times the worse they get. So it's kind of nice if they're a little bit more gestural and loose.
Dice que trata de mantenerla simple, que mucha gente trata de hacer las figuras que se vean bien, pero lo más que se tocan quedan duras. Eso es la idea de lo que dijo. No estoy traduciendo literalmente porque perdí un poco de las palabras, pero es la idea de lo que dijo, que a veces se las toca mucho y quedan rígidas. Lo lindo es que queden sueltas.
I've just got a few people underneath the archway there. Now so I've got this shape pretty much done. Now I can continue over to these people.
Ahora terminó la gente debajo del arco y se va a mover para seguir con la gente que está fuera del arco.
Again, it's not a big connection, but it's still somewhat of a little bit of a connection with that railing and stuff and the shadows. So I'm going to take any opportunity I can to connect these shapes.
Sí, no hay mucha conexión, no es una conexión grande, pero las sombras y las barandas conectan el arco con el grupo de gente ahí. Dice, usa cada oportunidad que tiene de conectar el trabajo, de conectar las secciones en el trabajo.
Alrighty, into the more darker middle values for some of the figures.
Va a trabajar en los colores intermedios más oscuros para alguna de las figuras. Lo que pasa es que va a trabajar ahora con lo que se ve ahí a la izquierda de la pantalla. Va a trabajar con el grupo de gente que está ahí. Yo imagino que por eso hice ese zoom.
I want to get the shadow on her side there.
¿Dónde va a poner la sombra a esa mujer que está dibujando? Pintando, no está dibujando.
And I have to connect them to the ground with a shadow also.
La va a conectar al piso con la sombra.
That always helps kind of finish off the illusion a little bit.
Y ayuda a completar la ilusión.
I want to save room for the red backpack, so I'm just leaving a little spot for that for a second.
Está dejando ese agujerito que dejó, es para poner la mochila roja.
But even that, just put in kind of wet into wet here so that it fuzzes a little bit.
Y lo pone mojado sobre mojado, así se corre un poquitito, queda. La palabra en inglés es fuzzy, que es pelusa.
Stay loose, stay loose.
Fuzz, the word in Spanish for fuzz es pelusa.
Pelusa?
Pelusa.
Pelusa, huh?
Pelusa.
I like it.
At least in Argentina. I don't know in other places of where they speak Spanish, if they use pelusa for fuzz.
Again, kind of connecting it down with a shadow real quick here.
Otra vez lo conecta con la sombra, rapidito.
And then I want the shadow side of this guy's sweatshirt connecting down to her too. Almost like they're holding hands maybe.
Otra vez conecta con la sombra del hombre con mochila. Es como si lo tuviera de la mano.
He's got a darker backpack on, so.
Tiene la mochila oscura.
All right, connecting all the time.
Conecta, lo que hace es conectar todo el tiempo.
Every time I go and reload my brush and I come back to my painting, I try and touch where I left off before and make sure that these shapes are starting to fuzz a little bit more.
Cada vez que carga el pincel de vuelta, vuelve al último lugar donde lo tuvo en la pintura.
I get the shadow on this leg, just the top part of that shadow in there.
Pone la sombra en la pierna, arriba, que se ve en la foto esa sombra.
Just paying attention to little stuff like that can make a big difference sometimes in how convincing your paintings are.
Dice, prestar atención a esas cosas ayuda a hacer convincentes las pinturas.
Dark hair there, looks like his hand is darker down here, and now he's going to connect to the little girl walking next to him.
Es esa mancha oscura, lo conecta a la nena caminando al costado.
Let me get the shadow side on her hat. So back to that green of her jacket. Get the folds and stuff here.
Vuelve al verde de la camperita, los pliegues.
It's a cold day on Catalina. They're all wearing hooded sweatshirts and stuff.
Dice que era un día fresco en Catalina. Todos están con buzos. Yeah, I'm sure that it was maybe 85.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Digo, seguramente en Catalina hacía 25 grados y estaban todos de buzo.
There's been a lot of times where I've been out painting on Catalina in t-shirt and shorts, and the locals are thinking I'm crazy. It's
Yeah,
like,
dice,
well, I came from Minnesota. It's a little bit colder.
dice que muchas veces estaba pintando de remera y short y todos lo miraban como si estuviera loco. Yo estoy en Canadá y a mí me pasa lo mismo. Here, it's maybe, I don't know, 25 and we're in flip-flops. We're in Canada. Acá
Yeah.
también. Hace 10 grados y estamos en short y remera.
Pero el invierno es muy crudo.
Sí, bueno.
All those little shadow shapes are so important for connections too. Got the dark in between them underneath the railing here.
Dice, todas esas sombras son muy importantes para conexión de
Okay,
las
so going
formas.
back to my value study, I'll zoom out again here. I'm pretty much done with the figures, so you can kind of see everything a little bit better again. But I stayed pretty true to my value study for these shapes so far.
Volviendo al estudio de valores, ahora va a volver a hacer zooming out para que vean. Se mantuvo bastante fiel, está terminado en ese grupo de figuras.
I do like some of those smaller shadows from palm trees or something kind of coming in here to break things up too. I didn't put it in my value study, but I'm just going to brush some of that in.
Dice que le gustan las pequeñas sombras de las palmeras, que esas sí no las puso en el estudio de valores, pero que le gustan y las va a poner.
It helps to fill that little lower part in a bit better there.
Y que ayudan a llenar la parte inferior un poco mejor.
Okay, continue up and around the building and then into the shadow sides and get that, make sure I'm defining that, and then I can kind of finish it off with some of those darks up on the hill.
Dice, va a continuar arriba y alrededor del edificio y va a terminar con las sombras arriba de la colina.
I can't get all those little details over there. I'm just trying to leave a few shapes. Mostly I wanted to darken this up some so that I can define the side of that girl's jacket a little bit better. So I'm just using some of the darker shapes in here to fill that in as I go up, making it up a little bit as I go.
Dice que no puede hacer todos los detalles, así que va a inventarlos un poco a medida que va trabajando y quiere hacer los detalles de la chaqueta de la niña, del buzo de la nena.
We've got the shadow from this green.
Va a hacer la sombra del techo verde.
There. And that's going to connect up, and now I can start putting the trees in behind.
Eso va a conectar para arriba y puede empezar a poner a los árboles de atrás.
And this will really help to pop out my building quite a bit better, obviously, when I start getting the trees and some definition around behind it.
Y eso va a ayudar a que salga el edificio para adelante, digamos, que salte para adelante cuando empieza a poner a los árboles por detrás.
Take a little bit of time there. Okay, before I go too far with that, I want to connect that, if possible, with the shadow on the building. So I'm just
Antes que avance mucho, quiere conectar eso con la sombra del edificio.
I'm just going to come up here and touch that edge.
Entonces va a tocar el borde del edificio.
Again, it's not a huge connection, but it's a way to not have all your shapes separated. So I try and force some of the connections early on. I can always come back in and make separations with gouache and lifting and that kind of thing later.
Dice que no es una conexión gigantesca, pero que siempre puede separarlo después.
That drop shadow, I think that's a little too blue. Tone it down.
Esa sombra es muy azul, que lo puede hacer toning down, bajarle el tono.
Okay, we've got that little railing up there. Now this shape isn't connected, but that's all right.
Esa forma no está conectada, pero está todo bien.
Interesting little shadow shape there. I'm trying to get.
Sí, es una sombra, forma interesante.
We've got the window back here too.
Está la ventana ahí atrás.
All right. Can move away from that again, I think, and continue on up on the hill.
Va a salir de ahí y continuar arriba de la colina.
those trees on Catalina have a lot of, I kind of mixed cadmium red into them with my yellows to warm them up a bit. Those eucalyptus trees, they have a little bit
Para,
of red in them.
para los árboles esos, que son eucaliptus, mezcla un poco de rojo de cadmio con el amarillo.
Try and do it mostly the same way I treated the value study as much as I can. Simplify it.
Está tratando de hacerlos de la misma manera que los hizo en el estudio de valores.
I'm still squinting, even though I'm painting on my color painting. I'm trying to still kind of block out small details and see bigger important details.
Todavía lo está haciendo con los ojos casi cerrados, de la misma manera que hizo en el estudio de valor, bloqueando los detalles grandes, aún cuando lo está haciendo en la pintura.
But this is why I had to tone that hill up above, even though I was going to cover most of it up, because when I leave little gaps behind, I didn't want white paper showing through. I needed that light brown. So I painted the whole hillside that color.
Por eso es que la pintó toda de ese color clarito, porque no quería dejar espacios blancos. Porque iba a pintarla de esta manera después. Usar esta técnica.
There's not a lot of green in those colors up there. They're pretty dusty and gray.
Dice que
But
no hay
that helps them kind of sit back on the hill too. If they were really colorful, they would compete with the colors down here. So
Dice que no hay mucho verde en esos tonos y que si fueran muy coloridos competirían con los tonos de la parte de abajo.
but once I get the middle values on, you can see how bright that first wash ended up being. It dried quite light.
Dice que una vez que tiene los valores intermedios ahí, se ve que claro que era la primera capa, el primer lavado.
Before that's all the way dry, I'm going to put in just a few little palm fronds with some pretty thick, bright green.
Antes que esté completamente seco, va a poner algunas hojas de palmera de un verde brillante.
Drop those in and let them fuzz a bit. Back to that fuzzing.
Va a dejar que se haga pelusa.
Always looking for a way to lose detail and soften edges. Most people see all the dark details when they look at a painting, but I work really hard to try and see bigger connections and the looser shapes.
Siempre está tratando de buscar de perder detalle. Que no quede detalle ahí. Y bordes flojos.
Okay, so that shape is matches pretty closely my value study. I have to dry brush a few of those little trees up on the top of the hill to finish that off, but otherwise it's pretty close to what I did on my black and white version.
Dice que esa forma es lo que hizo corresponde con el estudio de valores que hizo previamente.
Just going to dry brush these a little bit here.
Y con el pincel seco va a dibujar los árboles que se ven en la parte derecha, arriba de la fotografía de referencia.
I don't want them to be too dark and detailed. They're the furthest thing away on the painting, so I'm just going to want to suggest them a little bit.
Quiere sugerirlos, no los está haciendo en detalle.
Keep things nice and simple. There we go. Okay, now before all this dries, I'm going to come in and try and drop in a little bit of darker shrubs in there so that they, again, fuzz a little bit.
Antes que se sequen, va a poner unos arbustos oscuros de vuelta para que se hagan Ay, la palabra no es peluzante, para que queden borrosos.
Just because they're kind of soft shapes, those shrubs, it's more important that the little shadows and things that I'm dropping in right now will fuzz a little bit. It helps them to look round and soft and not hard-edged like a building.
Sí, lo que quiere es que se vean redonditos y suaves, no con bordes definidos como un edificio.
But again, I'm using a smaller brush and not as much water on my brush because I don't want to get cauliflowers.
Usa un pincel pequeño, más pequeño y seco porque no quiere coliflores.
Darken up up
Y
there.
definitivamente no quiere capullos.
It seems to be drying too hard-edged. I just use my finger to soften it too.
Y está usando el dedo para ablandarlos porque se secan, se estaban secando, se veía que se secaban con los bordes demasiado definidos.
Okay, I'm going to go back to my value study now and find the darks.
Ahora va a buscar los valores oscuros
Give this a chance to dry a little bit.
y darles la oportunidad que se sequen.
So I'm going to set that aside now. Back to my value study. Kind of tuck that away a little bit. All right, so now when I'm finding my darks, I want to avoid putting too many dark shapes in the distance, okay? I want that area to sit back. So I'm going to try and concentrate my darker shapes in the foreground and the middle ground.
Quiere evitar poner valores oscuros al fondo, quiere concentrar los oscuros en el frente y en el medio. Y vuelve al estudio de valores. Para eso.
Painting these value studies is so fun. I often have a lot more fun doing the value study than I do painting the actual painting.
Dice que es divertido pintar los estudios de valores y que muchas veces se divierte más haciendo los estudios de valores que la pintura.
That dark shape up there. They got a little shadow under that wall here.
Dice que hay una pequeña sombra debajo de esa pared.
Big simple shapes. Again, just for the value study, I'm not trying to be really accurate, trying to stay loose.
Formas simples, trata de mantenerlas sueltas.
Backpack is a little bit darker. Some of these darks I've already dropped in a little bit in my middle value shape if I wanted them to be softer edged, but I might have to go back in and
Dice que
darken.
alguno de los oscuros ya los puso, pero puede volver y oscurecerlos un poco.
But visually, look how much putting those dark shapes in brings those shapes closer to us and sets the hillside back. That's why it's important not to put a bunch of darks way back on the hillside, okay? I'm trying to create more contrast and visually bring these objects closer to the viewer.
Poniendo los oscuros en el medio y en el frente y no en la parte de atrás hace que el dibujo se ponga más cerca de la persona que lo está mirando. La idea.
All right, so that's kind of the finished value study, I think.
Con eso terminó el value study, el estudio de valores.
I don't think I need to do too much more on there. Obviously, I can do more detail with bricks and stuff on if I wanted to on my color painting, but I really don't need to. I like the freshness and looseness of the value study, so
Obviamente podría hacer más, pero le gusta que sea fresco y sin demasiado
take the value study up there.
detalle.
All right, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit again here so you can see everything together. All three together. Okay, so I'm going to start refining that
Ahora va a
structure.
empezar refinando la estructura.
Try and bring that forward a little bit here. Like that dark. Few small little details can make a big difference too.
Pequeños detalles pueden hacer una gran diferencia.
All right, we've got these darker figures in the background.
Tenemos estas figuras oscuras en la parte de atrás.
Which will again kind of help to highlight the main guy in the front there. Kind of negatively paint that negative shape around him one more time and bring him forward.
Una manera de traer hacia adelante el hombre este de la camisa blanca es pintar las figuras alrededor de él de oscuro. Eso trae a esa persona hacia el frente.
Trying to stick to my value study plan of attack here.
Sigue el plan del estudio de valores.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in on those figures for you real quick just so you can see them. They look more detailed when you back off from them, okay? When you zoom in on them, not a bunch of detail on them.
No tienen mucho detalle, se ven más detalladas cuando uno las mira de lejos, las figuras.
Okay. Let's go a little darker up here again.
Va a oscurecer la ventana de arriba del arco, las ventanitas de los costados.
All right. Dark on that wall on the bottom.
Va a ser el borde de la pared de contención abajo a la izquierda.
That middle value stage with all those connections, that's the most difficult part for me anyways. I think for a lot of my students when they're trying to learn to see the bigger connections out of all these individual little shapes.
La etapa de los valores intermedios es la etapa más complicada para él y para sus estudiantes cuando tratan de ver las formas, cómo conectar las formas.
Everybody sees the details. We see the people and all those small trees and stuff, but it's hard to look through the details and see the big connection.
Todos ven los valores, los árboles, la gente, pero es difícil ver las conexiones. I hope I did it okay.
Sounds like you're doing fine. Thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Thank you.
A little bit of texture on the bottom of that palm tree.
Está poniendo textura en la parte de abajo de la palmera.
All right, time to get a few fun darks on the figures.
Ahora va a poner oscuros en las figuras.
Try and keep it a little bit simple like I did with the value study. I don't need to get too carried away.
Lo va a mantener simple como hizo con el estudio de valores. No se va a dejar llevar. No se va a dejar llevar. Va a mantenerlo simple.
But again, that sure helps to bring those figures forward from everything else beyond.
Pero los detalles oscuros van a ayudar a traer las figuras al frente con respecto de todo lo demás que está más atrás.
It's fun putting the little details on, but you have to be careful that you don't get too carried away and try and paint everything that's in the reference photograph. This is where plein air painting helps because I start to remember things are moving and changing and
Dice que es divertido poner los detalles, pero no hay que dejarse llevar. Y para eso, planner painting, you said?
yeah, outdoor painting.
Oh, dice, ahí es donde ayuda a pintar afuera, porque todos los detalles y las cosas que se mueven ayudan con eso. Thank you.
Yep. Bring those figures forward quite a bit. That helps. All right, darken up the legs on the little kid.
A trabajar con las piernas del chiquito.
Notice I use quick gestural brushstrokes for the feet and stuff, and I rarely put in shoes in the paintings, really, just maybe if they're a little bit closer. But if you don't put in a lot of detail by their feet, that helps to make it look like they're walking.
Dice que usa gestos rápidos y que normalmente no en los pies y que normalmente no pone zapatos y que eso ayuda a dar la impresión que están caminando.
Okay, so I've got that in. I've got those figures in. I've got these figures in. I need
Está
those.
chequeando que puso todo, está haciendo como chequeando que está todo.
I like how that window's kind of breaking into the light a little bit there.
Pone la ventana de arriba a la que está más hacia la derecha, está mitad en la sombra, mitad en la luz. Entonces está trabajando con eso.
Just suggesting some detail on those shapes.
Está sugiriendo detalle en las formas, no haciendo detalle.
All those little shrubs I put up in the mountain have pretty much disappeared, unfortunately. That's how wet it was up there when I put them on, so I'm going to go up and try and put just a few more in again.
Todos los arbustos que puso desaparecieron porque estaba muy mojado, así que va a tratar de poner más.
But again, very lightly, because I don't want to draw attention back here with too many darks.
Pero de vuelta muy suavemente porque no quiere robar foco, llamar la atención con mucho oscuro ahí arriba.
Just a little bit.
Solamente un poquito. Voy a cortar un poco, voy a estornudar, perdón.
Okay, get those darks on that palm tree, and I'd be pretty close to finishing this up. And look at that, I said about an hour and a half. Wow.
Sofía.
Gracias.
Que no sea corona, que no sea corona.
No, alergia. Disculpen, me puse mute para estornudar y no podía. I'm sorry, I sneezed and I muted myself and then I couldn't
No
unmute
dijo
it.
nada. Bueno,
The dangers of Zoom.
ahora maravillosa la Acuarela.
Yeah.
Bellísima.
It's beautiful.
La luz.
I'm trying to get really dry paint with a small synthetic brush.
Está poniendo pintura muy seca con un pincel sintético pequeño.
I use for the details, synthetic brushes.
Usa para los detalles pinceles sintéticos.
So I have to be careful and negatively paint around these tree trunks one more time.
Tiene que tener cuidado y pintar en negativo alrededor de los troncos de los árboles una vez más.
Some of these darker shapes will help to show the side of that trunk, so it's important that I can paint that dark shape and then come back in with my fingernail and kind of scratch out lighter palm trees or palm fronds.
Las hojas esas en negativo ayudan a que se vean los troncos de los árboles. Puede pintarlas y sacar la pintura con la uña.
That helps to show the form of those trees that they're standing in front if I get that little bit of a darker shape between them right now.
Eso ayuda a sacar a mostrar la forma de los troncos.
All right. What else? I don't think it needs a whole lot else. I'm going to do a little bit of so there's this bright orange that's up there on the rooftop too, some of those tiles. The nice thing about cadmium yellow and cadmium red is they're pretty opaque.
Algunas de las tejas esas que se ven en el techo son de un naranja brillante. Y lo bueno del amarillo de cadmio, del rojo de cadmio, es que son opacos.
So I can come in with just a little bit of water and a small brush that's mostly just paint. And I can, even though I didn't plan for these shapes before here, I can come back in now and put some of that orange in here.
Entonces, aunque no planeo para esas formas, con mayormente solo pintura y un pincel pequeño, puede volver y pintar.
Okay, and I've got it on my brush, so I'm just going to go ahead and bounce it around in a couple other places here, maybe a little bit more red.
Y puede ponerlo en otros lugares, tal vez con un poco más de rojo. Y la expresión que usó fue bounce, que es rebotar con el pincel. I'm saying that you used the expression bounce, which is like jump.
Just put it in a few different.
Yes, yes.
Maybe there's a little sign here or something, whatever. Okay, so just get that warm color going around because there was a lot of blues and grays and greens.
Está poniendo el color ese cálido en varios lugares de la pintura porque está lleno de azules y verdes. Entonces está poniendo un poco de toques de cálidos alrededor.
And I'm not going to really spell out Via Casino on here, but I'm just going to indicate a little bit of the writing that's on that the front of there.
Dice que no va a poner Vía Casino como dice en la pintura, pero va a indicar un poco la escritura que estaba.
Just a little bit. Doesn't take much. I try and spell it out and write it correctly. It's kind of distracting, so I prefer to simplify it down a little
Dice
bit.
que no lleva mucho y que si trata de escribirlo correctamente distrae.
Okay, just little dry brush strokes, simple little brush strokes.
Pinceladas con el pincel seco, sorry.
No problem. Let the viewer figure out what that is.
Deja que para que la persona que lo vea, que se imagine qué es.
Okay, I don't think there's, I'm going to do a little bit up on the tops of those palm tree trunks and give them a little bit of texture, and then we can ask some questions if anybody has questions and wrap it up here.
Dice, va a tocar un poco en los troncos y unas preguntas, si alguien tiene preguntas. Y estamos listos para terminar.
Ahí también no hay preguntas.
If I'm trying to keep it all nice and light and airy, I don't want it to get too heavy-handed. Photographs have a tendency to make a lot, especially shadow areas, too dark. So it's
Trata de
important.
mantener la pintura liviana y aireada. Dice que las fotos especialmente tienden a mantener las áreas con sombras especialmente pesadas. Trata de mantener la pintura liviana.
All right. There you have it. Let's go to all here again. Yeah, I don't think I need to do much more on there. So the value study, again, was important to find the big connections so that when I go into watercolor and color, I can get those little passages where the water and paint are mixing on the paper.
Dice, el estudio de valor era importante para indicar las conexiones y, again, with the color, sorry.
Oh, yeah, so that you can get the colors mixing together on the paper if you connect those shapes.
Para mantener los colores mezclando en el papel para conectar las formas. Hay un mouse en la pantalla, Ale.
Of a railing in there too. This cobalt turquoise is kind of similar to the cat colors in that it's pretty opaque, so I can paint that railing on. I can always add some gouache to it too if I want. But
Está usando un turquesa cobalto que de vuelta es opaco y está poniendo la baranda de la vereda.
all right, there you have it, Catalina Island.
Listo, la isla de Catalina. Hermoso, beautiful,
Fantástico, fantástico.
fantastic.
Fantástico.
Thank you.
Sí. Muy bueno, Andy.
Excellent.
Cuando hizo la foto pensé que era muy cargada y él la aligeró, ¿viste?
When she saw the picture, she thought it was heavy, basically, but it's
That's
beautiful.
our job. That's our job. Make it lighter,
Dice que es su trabajo hacerlo liviano.
simplify it. I got rid of many of the figures, didn't leave them all. I just put some of the important ones.
Ahora vemos por qué es uno de los acuarelistas más importantes del mundo.
She can see
Fantástico.
why you're one of the watercolor
Está
is
deshabilitado el chat, Ale, me parece.
¿Cómo?
one of the
El chat
premier.
está deshabilitado para poder felicitar.
Ah,
It
perdón.
has been
Ahí
fantastic.
está. Perdón.
So people are going to-
Andy, Ale, great.
Fantástico una vez más, Alejandra. Muchas gracias.
Fantastic. I'm going to translate what people are saying. Someone saying,
Thank you very much.
congratulations, excellent.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, beautiful, fantastic, excellent, divine,
Muchas gracias, excelente.
wonderful,
I agree with all
Muchas
of that. I
gracias.
don't have questions.
Gracias.
beautiful, excellent.
Wonderful work.
Thank
Vamos,
you.
vamos con el aplauso. Aplaudimos, así nos damos tanto.
My pleasure.
Bravo.
¡Bravo!
Ottimo.
Thanks for having me.
Grazie, molto bello, grazie.
Excelente.
Maravilloso.
They're taking pictures and stuff still. So.
Ahí, a ver si lo puedo poner.
Can you see the chat, Andy?
Oh, can I see the? Yeah. Oh, now I can.
Yeah.
Una
Someone,
pregunta is question, right?
yes, pregunta is question.
Somebody had
Sophia, I have a question about the brush,
Yes.
the brushes that he's using and his palette.
Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
yep. So, oh, Laura's going to share my wife's going to share my screen again.
Bárbaro, cómo cada cual te va dando su impronta, ¿no? Parece la entrada del Sportivo.
Pero un momentito, voy a silenciar porque, a ver, Andy, no te encuentro y te quiero poner en la pantalla. Me parece que se salió, ¿no, Sofía?
Okay, so my brushes, I usually start with larger natural hair brushes. Like this is a squirrel mop. Need to unmute Sophia. Let Sophia unmute herself.
Wait. Sofía?
There, ahora sí. Thank you. Again, Andy, please.
Yeah, so I start with these larger natural hair.
Empieza con los pinceles grandes de pelo natural.
And then I go to a little bit smaller, so for the middle value.
Y después va para los valores intermedios, un poco menores.
Like a middle size sable brush.
De sable es Marta, de pelo de Marta.
This one is called a Dream Catcher. It's made in Spain.
Se llama Dreamcatcher, está hecho en España.
And then sometimes I like to use one of these Chinese calligraphy brushes for trees.
Y después le gusta usar esos pinceles chinos para los árboles.
And then at the end of the painting, I use smaller synthetic brushes for details because they don't hold as much water.
Y al final le gusta para los detalles esos pinceles más pequeños, sintéticos, porque no tienen tanta agua, no contienen tanta agua.
Not as much water, and I can draw with them.
No retienen. Gracias.
Well, that's it. Those are my brushes.
Andy, ¿das clases afuera, plener, o también por Zoom o por internet?
Do you teach using Zoom or internet? Do you have workshops, or this is where you teach workshops?
I'll be teaching Zoom workshops for a long time now. Yeah, I've got one coming up next month. I think we have maybe 10 spots left. So
el mes que viene enseña un workshop en Zoom y tiene 10 lugares disponibles. Do you have a link or something that you can share?
They can go to my website. My wife will type our website into the chat.
Pueden ir al website. La esposa va a tipear el website en el chat si se quieren inscribir.
Sí, quería preguntar the idea of connection that you spoke about all the time, connecting all the medium values. It has to do also with composition, because connecting all these values make like reading the image in the proper way.
Yes, exactly.
Would you mind? So I translate for everyone else to
go ahead.
Connecting values again.
So
what was the question? So I can translate so everyone else can understand.
Bueno, lo puedo decir yo.
Como quieras.
Vale. Él habla todo el rato de conectar los valores unos con otros y preguntaba si eso tiene que ver con la idea de luego a la hora de la composición general, de la lectura correcta de la obra, que esa conexión entre los valores ayuda a la lectura de la obra. Eso es lo que quería preguntar.
Okay, if you can answer, I can translate so everyone else gets the answer.
Yep. So those connections definitely help the composition, because when you paint everything as one simple connected group, the viewer, their eye, when they're looking at the painting, it doesn't stop, start with all these separate shapes. The viewer's eye can just kind of travel through uninterrupted.
Dice que las conexiones ayudan a la composición, porque cuando la persona mira la pintura, el ojo no empieza y para, empieza y para, empieza y para, sino que mira a la pintura ininterrumpidamente.
And then, and then I find myself making shapes. So when I do the value study and connect those shapes on there, sometimes I see a big empty area on the bottom of the painting. So I'll just make a a brush stroke or a shadow to help the composition when I'm doing it in black and white.
Y después se encuentra a él mismo haciendo formas cuando encuentra espacios vacíos, cuando hace el estudio de valor, porque para ayudar a esa conexión.
And these read well from far away, these little value studies. You look at it and you know exactly what it is. There's hardly any detail, hardly any color, but you know what this scene is.
Dicen esos estudios, aunque no hay detalle y no hay colores, aún desde lejos se sabe qué es la escena solo mirándolos.
También. Cristina, ¿quieres hacer una pregunta?
No.
Ah, si te
There's
parece,
another question. A ver. How do you choose your images? What do you consider when you choose something to paint?
That's hard to say. It kind of depends on my mood.
Depende del ánimo que tiene.
Sometimes it's a very simple, quiet scene, like especially last year.
A veces es algo muy simple.
Found myself looking for more peaceful scenes.
Por ejemplo, todo este año pasado, con lo que ha pasado, escenas simples y pacíficas.
But I do love interesting shapes. When I'm looking at a scene, I don't care what the subject is, but if it has a nice collection of interesting shapes, I think I can make a good
Pero
painting.
mira formas interesantes. Busca el interés en las formas.
comenzó con hacer workshops en plenar.
Ale,
¿Está dando o siguen con el tema del coronavirus?
Ale, decías, no entendí el principio.
No, si comenzó a dar workshops afuera, al aire libre.
She says if you started doing workshops outside. If you do workshops outside.
Yes, I do.
Dice que
Not
sí.
many. Not many anymore because it's nice to do both. Have a couple days in the studio, a couple days outside, just in case the weather is bad. And
Dice que no muchos porque depende mucho del clima. Del clima. En estos lugares el clima es bastante impredecible. I'm saying that in these places, especially, I don't know how close you live to the lake, to Lake Superior, but the weather is quite unpredictable.
yes, yeah, exactly. And every time I book a workshop, if it's in the summer, it can be 100 degrees and humid. If it's in the fall, it can be 40 and raining. So yeah, the weather is so unpredictable.
Okay. Si te parece bien, podemos mostrar algunos de los trabajos que se hicieron durante la demo.
Alejandra, I think you need to let Sophia unmute herself again.
Yes. Sofía.
A ver, ahora sí. Ahora sí.
Thank you.
Él decía que cada vez que hace booking un workshop afuera, el clima se va al diablo. es muy impredecible el clima acá. Alejandra is saying that if it's okay with you, we can let the participants show their works.
Sure.
Puedo pedir, si necesitan que les traduzca, digan al principio, y si no, si ustedes hablan inglés y quieren directamente hablar con él, digan no necesito traducción y entonces no traduzco. ¿Qué les parece?
Oh, wow. Julieta, that was nice.
Alba, el audio. ¿Cómo estás, Alba?
Alba, ¿necesitas traducción?
That's nice, Alba. Wow.
Sí, necesito traducción.
Y necesitas traducción. Está diciendo que es muy lindo. Dijo, wow. Eso no necesita traducción.
Gracias, un placer haber compartido con
Said,
esta clase porque la verdad es maravillosa. Muchísimas
thank you
gracias.
so much. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have shared this class, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you. Susan, that's nice.
Gracias, Ale. Gracias a todos. Chao, chao.
Chao, Alba. Gracias.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias, hermosa pintura, la verdad, un genio total,
Thank
felicitaciones.
you very much. Beautiful, your painting. You're a total genius. Congratulations.
Thank you. Very kind. Gracias.
Bye
Nice.
bye. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Adiós.
Susanna, I think on yours, if the shadows under the building, if they were a little bit darker,
Dice que tus sombras bajo el edificio son un poco oscuras, Susana.
Okay.
a little bit darker on the shadow. The shadows should be darker.
Las sombras Tendrían que tener el mismo valor que en el hill, que en la colina.
Ok.
See, the shadows are darker than the rooftop.
Que más oscuras que el techo.
Ok. Thanks a lot.
Gracias.
Nice.
Thank you.
Juliet, that looks great.
Hi, how are you?
Muchas
Ah,
gracias, Alejandra. Muchas gracias al maestro. Una excelencia. Hasta
Thank
siempre.
you. Excellent.
Gracias, Susana. A ver,
Bye.
Liliana. Hola, Liliana.
Liliana.
¿Qué
Liliana.
tal? ¿Cómo están?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Liliana. Very good. Nice big shape.
Very good. Muy bueno. Hermosas formas grandes.
Wow, bravo.
Bravo, Liliana.
Thank you.
Gracias,
Is that Luca?
Espera un momentito que estoy tratando de buscar otra. Adriana, ¿tenés algo?
She will put it in the big, she will share in the big one.
Adriana.
Adriana, ¿necesitas traducción?
Wow. That's great. Boy, that really pops. I like that a
Thank you
lot.
so much. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good.
Gracias.
Good.
Se perdió la
Alejandro
pantalla.
también.
A ver. Ahí está. Gracias.
There we go. That works better. Yeah, very nice.
A ver si encuentro otra persona que quiera mostrar.
Anyone else?
Lucia and Julieta are
Héctor.
holding.
Mazán, ¿tenés?
Mazán, now. Mazán, ¿necesitas traducción?
¿Tenés? ¿Tenés para mostrar?
Mazán.
Sí.
¿Necesitas traducción?
Sí.
Sí? Ok. Mazán needs translation.
Another nice one. I love the figures. Those
Le
are-
encantan las figuras.
Sabes que a mí, la verdad, es lo que más me cuesta.
Yeah, he says that's what he finds more difficult to do.
Well,
The
you did
figures.
great. They
Dice que
look
te salieron fantásticas.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Could use a little
Thank you
bit
very
of
much.
the orange and red, the little bits of orange and red that I put in on mine. I think you
Dice-
could use that too.
Dice que you think he could do that using
Some
the
of the warmer
orange.
colors, some browns and reds.
Dice que uses marrones y rojos.
Sí, sí, los mezclé, pero me parece que se me fue la mano con el verde. Los
Dice
mezclé con
he
el
mixed
verde,
them
pero
with the green, but he thinks he used too much green.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Good job.
bueno, muchas gracias.
Buen trabajo,
y
Mazán.
felicitaciones, muy buena clase, la verdad.
Excellent
Gracias.
class.
Celia.
Bueno.
Celia.
Celia, now? Ahora Celia, Ale.
Sí.
Celia.
Can you hold it up a little bit?
Necesito traducción.
Okay, Celia needs translation too.
Wow, nice. I think maybe a little bit more color on her figures, but they look
Un
great.
poco más de colores en las figuras, pero se ve muy bien, muy bueno.
Gracias.
Same
Thank
thing.
you.
I think the shadows.
Dice que las sombras, que mires arriba del techo.
Sí,
the
más
shadows
fuerte.
could be a little bit darker.
Dice she says that she needs stronger. She realizes she needs stronger shadows.
Yep, that's it.
Dice que es eso.
Gracias.
Gracias,
Thank you.
Bueno, Cristina,
¿Puedo
¿cómo
mostrar?
estás? Ahora, Mac, ¿necesitas
gracias.
traducción? ¿Necesitas
Sí,
traducción?
Sí, por favor.
Yes,
Sí,
she
por
needs
favor.
translation.
Excelente clase,
She said,
maestro.
the class was excellent, master.
Thank you. Gracias. That's nice. She did it in reverse. Somehow. it's
Dice
a-
que lo hiciste en reversa. Or maybe it's her camera.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Maybe she's mirroring.
Es la cámara, claro. Sí.
Sí,
I think
dice que
maybe put a wash over the ground. The building should be the whitest part. The ground should have a little bit of a tone on it.
dice que el edificio tendría que ser más ancho y poner un poco de un tone, que no sé qué es un tone, perdón, abajo.
Una base.
Una base, eso.
Bueno,
Perdón.
Bueno. Es beautiful.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Ahora, Maika.
María Catalina, ¿necesitas traducción? ¿Sí? Ok. Ahí está. A ver.
Oh, that's nice. See, you got your hill a really good value.
Dice que la colina tiene un muy buen valor.
Yeah, because that's important. That background hill.
Dice que es
That's good.
importante, que es muy bueno.
And good figures too. Those
Excelente, muy buenas figuras también.
Gracias.
Bravo.
Bien, Maika,
Thank you
¿eh?
very
Mira
much.
quién te lo dice, Maika.
Gracias.
Bravo.
Bueno, Lucía,
Thank you.
¿tenés algo? Matías.
Matías,
Matías. Wow, there's some color.
dice, excelente color.
Matías Godoy.
Yeah, that's nice and strong. I like that.
Matías, ¿necesitas traducción?
Figures are good. The figures are all a little bit too much on the same size and same level.
Las figuras, dice que están todas en el mismo nivel y el mismo tamaño.
Yeah, break them up a little bit. Let one be kind of in the middle of them.
Dice que las separes un poco y dejar que una esté en el medio.
Excellent color and
Dice, los
shadow.
colores son excelentes.
Bueno,
Muchas
perfecto.
gracias.
Muy bien, Matías, ¿eh? Bueno, no te queremos dejar más. Te agradecemos muchísimo haber aceptado la invitación para el Paseo de las
We're
Artes.
incredibly thankful that you accepted the invitation to the Paseo de las Artes.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bueno, esperemos encontrarnos en otra oportunidad y espero que alguna vez vengas a la Argentina.
So we hope to host you in another opportunity and to get together in Argentina at some point.
I would love that.
No, ok.
Don't say it twice.
Sí, ojalá, o en Canadá nos encontramos.
Or in Canada.
Agradezco a todos los participantes que nos siguen todos los
She's thanking all the
sábados
participants that follow her every Saturday.
y te deseo lo mejor y esperemos vernos en otra oportunidad.
Best wishes and hopefully soon.
Y los saludo a todos, un beso grande y nos vemos en la próxima.
Until the next one.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Alejandra. Thanks for Sophie.
Gracias.
Felicitaciones.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye.
Thank